Hello and welcome back. In this fourth installment of the Ultimate Redstone Guide, we'll explore mechanism components, or components that interact with the world in some way. In previous installments, we covered power and transmission components, the components that generate and carry redstone signals, but now it's time to discuss how we use those signals within our machines. And this is where redstone truly becomes useful, so hopefully by the end of this video, everything should start clicking into place, and you'll see just how incredibly useful redstone can be. Alright, let's dive right in with the redstone lamp. The redstone lamp will emit light when activated by any signal strength or an adjacent powered block. Since it's considered a solid block itself, you can chain multiple lamps together, lighting them all with a single signal as long as they're adjacent to each other. Another thing about it is it also turns on instantly and takes about 0.2 seconds or 2 redstone ticks to turn off. Another lighting option we have is the copper bulb. Like the redstone lamp, it emits light when powered, but unlike the lamp, it stays lit even after the power is removed. So you can kind of think of it as a toggle light. One pulse to turn it on, and another pulse to turn it off. Another thing to note about the copper bulb is its brightness depends on its oxidation state. Essentially, the greener it gets, the dimmer the light. So the most oxidized being nearly dark, and the least oxidized being at full brightness. One last and very useful feature of the copper bulb is that a comparator can actually detect its state. So if the light is on, the comparator will activate, and vice versa. When the light is off, the comparator will also turn off. So this is an easy way to make a single pulse into a sustained one, essentially a button that functions like a lever. Okay, so now that we've talked about the light blocks, let's talk about components that allow us to physically move blocks. Pistons. First off, there are two types of pistons, sticky and regular, and they have a lot in common. So to start, both can be used to push certain blocks, and they both can be used to break certain blocks. So blocks like wood and stone can be pushed with pistons, and blocks like shulker boxes or melons can be broken. They each have a push limit of 12 blocks. They both take 1 redstone tick to extend and 0 to retract. And lastly, they are both considered transparent blocks, so powering them directly does not power adjacent components. And now for the obvious difference. Regular pistons push blocks, whereas sticky pistons push and pull blocks. This makes sticky pistons useful in things like hidden doors. When powered, it pushes the blocks in place, hiding the entrance, and when retracted, it pulls the blocks away, revealing the way through. But pistons have so many cool uses beyond just doors, so let's check out a few more ways to use them. So for example, we have a couple simple farms here. In this setup, when the melon grows, the piston extends and breaks it automatically. And over here, we have the same idea, but with sugarcane. Once it grows to a certain height, this observer will see that, activating the piston and cutting it down. Same thing over here, the observer is detecting that change and activating the piston when it needs to. Now on to the next component, hoppers. Hoppers are super useful. You can think of hoppers as the item mover component. Essentially, it checks for items above it and pulls them down and into the container its funnel is pointing to, making moving items from container to container completely automatic. So, to explain shortly, it takes items in two ways. It sucks in floating items above it or items in a container placed on top of it. For example, we have a chest on top of a hopper here, and now these items in the top hopper are being transferred to this chest below because of the hopper funneling the items from top to bottom. So think about how useful these hoppers could be for our automatic farms. If we put a chest here for storage and a hopper into the side by crouching, we could have a totally automatic farm, growing, harvesting, and storing everything for us all by itself. One more thing of note about hoppers is that they can be locked from collecting or moving any items if powered by redstone. So if you ever want a toggleable hopper, just simply attach a lever, or any power component for that matter, on an adjacent block, and you'll be able to control when the hopper is able to move items or collect items. Alright, so now that we've learned how to take floating items and put them into storage, now let's learn how to take items from storage and make them back into floating items. So that's where droppers come in. Luckily, they are super simple. When you give them a redstone signal, they spit out an item it has in its inventory at exactly 1 item per pulse. They can shoot items out into the air or even into other containers as well. So people often use these for item elevators to send resources to higher elevations, because hoppers are only able to send items down, not upwards. So droppers are used for elevation. Now, dispensers are similar to droppers, but with a minor difference. They also shoot things out, but if the item is usable, then they'll use it instead. So for example, if you put arrows inside the inventory of the dispenser, instead of just dropping it out as item form, it'll actually shoot the arrow as if a player was shooting it. This also is applicable to eggs. It can even create lava and water sources if you put the corresponding buckets into the inventory. And they can also even place shulker boxes right in front of them too. So there's lots of use cases for dispensers. One more thing to note about both droppers and dispensers is that they will choose what item to shoot out of their inventory randomly. So out of the dropper or dispenser's inventory, it will select a random occupied inventory slot and choose that to shoot out with any given redstone pulse. So this makes them perfect for randomizer machines. If you want to create a simple coin flip machine, just put two different items into the dropper or dispenser and give it a pulse. And you'll get a 50-50 chance of getting one or the other. Okay, that should be everything on droppers and dispensers. Let's talk a little bit about the crafter. So the crafter functions similarly to droppers and dispensers, but different in most ways. So instead of just spitting out whatever's inside the crafter actually attempts to craft the items inside it first, and then it drops the finished product when it's powered. So if we take a look inside its inventory, you can see it reflects the crafting inventory of a crafting table. Certain inventory slots can be right-clicked to be locked, and these locked slots will not accept any items, allowing you to make specific patterns within the crafter. For example, if you'd like to automatically make wooden slabs, you can simply block out the top 6 slots and leave the bottom 3 to accept the planks. And when hoppers feed into the crafter, they are automatically arranged in these 3 slots because these 6 are locked out, arranging the crafting pattern to make slabs. So when powered, the crafter will spit out slabs. I've often used the crafter to condense my storage by automatically making ingots into blocks, saving me storage space in my chests. And I've also used it to make things like torches and rockets in bulk automatically. It's a super, super useful block. Alright, let's talk about something a little bit simpler. Doors, gates, trapdoors, and their iron counterparts. So these ones are pretty straightforward. If you give them a redstone signal, they'll open up, depower them, and they'll close. Now if a door or gate is already open, powering it won't do anything. But if it's open and you remove the power, it'll snap shut. So they're consistent in that way. Powered is always open, depowered is always closed. They'll also be activated and deactivated by any strongly powered block adjacent to it. So you can open an iron door, for example, from below if you ever want to hide your redstone in the floor or behind a wall. And the only difference between the iron doors and the other doors are iron doors cannot be opened manually. They have to be opened with redstone. So they're good for traps and escape rooms and things like that. Okay, next on the list is the note block, which emits a customizable sound when powered by redstone. So by default, it is tuned to its lowest note, F sharp. And it can be right-clicked to change its pitch, which can be set to any note climbing upwards for 2 octaves. Then it cycles back to that original low F sharp. And as a music nerd, I find the following chart very interesting. Each color represents a different note. So if you don't have a texture pack like mine that displays the note on the side of the block, then you can use the color of the note to roughly tell exactly what note it is tuned to. Next, let's talk about the tone of the note blocks. Note block sounds can be customized by placing a variety of different blocks underneath it. So by default, the sound is a harp, and here's a chart for each block and the corresponding sound. If you place a mob head on top of the note block, it will emit the sound of that mob. So if you have a wither skeleton skull, you can make the note block sound like a wither skeleton by placing it on top of the note block and powering it. And this works for every skull in the game, even dragon heads. So that can be fun for harmless pranks around your friend's base. Alright, moving on to the TNT block. The TNT block can be detonated with redstone. So that's pretty simple. A few fun facts about TNT is that if it explodes in water, it doesn't cause any block damage, but it still causes damage to the player, so be careful with that. Its fuse time lasts 40 redstone ticks, or 4 seconds, and TNT can automatically be placed and lit using dispensers. Alright, running through the last few blocks that interact with redstone signal really quickly. The bell will ring when powered with redstone. The big drip leaf will not collapse when it is powered by redstone signal. And finally, the piglin and dragonhead will flap its ears and open their mouth when powered with redstone. So that should do it for the mechanism component video of our series. In the next and final video, I will talk about rails, minecarts, and other movable components. So as always, if you want to learn more about those, check that out. If not, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.